Hello, I'm Robin. Welcome to Bookspin. When the People Fell, the seventh story in the Instrumentality of Mankind sequence, was first published in Galaxy magazine, April 1959. This is a story on the theme of mankind's colonization of Venus. It's quite a short one. There's not a lot of character development in here, but there are some quite intriguing themes and world building. Some pretty disturbing themes, actually. And again, like the last story, this story is told within a frame narrative, which recounts events from a bygone era. In this case, an old man who bore witness to these events is being interviewed by a reporter. So this event happened hundreds of years ago. This old man is said to be over 400 years old. So clearly we've made some huge developments in human longevity by this point. But this man is believed to be the only person who still remembers the time the Gunhogo took Venus. So the Gunhogo was basically the last remaining nation on Earth to survive as a distinct state outside of the instrumentality, following the nuclear apocalypse. Eventually, the instrumentality incorporated all of humankind. But this is the Gunhogo at the point of this story. It's basically a successor state to China. The people are known as Chinesians. And while the old man is recounting his story, he has to explain various terms which are no longer used today. And it's kind of interesting because the terms that he uses, they kind of sound like they could have been derived from Chinese, a lot of them, if you're at all familiar with the language. So, for example, the word Gunhogo itself, if you look at the way it's spelt, I think it could easily be an anglicized corruption of Gonghegwo, which is the Chinese name for republic. I don't know if this is what Smith was going for, but it seems plausible because he was very much invested in Chinese culture himself. He spoke Chinese. He spent some of his youth in China. He had numerous cultural ties with China. So all of this influence definitely manifests in Cordwainer Smith's stories, a lot of them anyway. Anyway, I digress. So the old man explains what happened in the past. At the time, he was a young man on Venus in experimental area A, which I guess was some kind of research facility he was working in. Now, living alongside the planet at the time was a native sentient species known as the Laudies. And these appear to be like floating bubbles. That's how they're described. Apparently they get in the way of human expansion. They appear to be intelligent in some way, but they're also kind of inscrutable. The Laudies themselves aren't dangerous or threatening to humanity, but if people kill them, it creates an explosion that contaminates 1,000 acres of land. But if humanity is serious about colonizing the planet, coexisting with these beings isn't an option. Now, Smith doesn't really go into a lot of detail to explain this point. But the point is, the Laudies are a barrier to human expansion. And this is where the title of the story, When the People Fell, comes in. This refers to the day that the Chinesians overcome this barrier and begin their colonization campaign. And the way they do this is by dropping down millions of their citizens from space onto the planet's surface by means of parachutes, which is a very dangerous and reckless endeavor for sure, but they have millions of people to do this. So they achieve this by sheer force of numbers, and once landed, the mission of the settlers is to round up all of the Loudies and wipe them out by sort of herding them and starving them rather than killing them directly. And this is how they conquer the planet and rid it of the native species. So yeah, it's kind of disturbing. It's pretty brutal, even though there's not really any actual physical violence in the story. Not very much of this anyway. It is basically a genocide. And that is pretty much it. It's a very short story. Not a lot else happens. There is a love interest between the man and a young woman on the research base, but it's really kind of peripheral to the main event of the story. So it's tragic, it's kind of poignant, it doesn't paint humanity in a good light, but there isn't really enough depth here in this story to leave a really strong impression, I think, in the same way that you might find in some of Smith's other stories. But still, there is definitely some memorable imagery in here. And like all of the stories that I've discussed so far in Cordwainer Smith's work, it does a good job of enriching the feature history and the world building.